It's Brian Kilmeade.
Well, kinda. It's a much bigger, more stout, astute version of the Kilmeade. That's right. You're speaking with Tyrus. I'm filling in for BK while he go work on his leg day and get his legs right. He's been looking kind of skinny in the legs lately, according to Dana Perino. But I'm excited to be here today to get a chance to talk a little more. The cuffs are off, and it's my way. I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. And I talked about a little bit last night on the Gutfeld show where Greg and I were discussing the whole, bigger than Watergate signal war plans debacle that the left is acting like it was somebody got the codes to the nuclear to the red button. But it's just refreshing that was a mistake made 1,000%. But Greg was right when he said this is not a story. He's not going to participate anymore in it. But the thing is about accountability. And I think when it comes to accountability, it's your response has to match the accountability, which means if I'm, 15 minutes late home for dinner and I didn't bother to call, the response is like, hey, you should have called. And, that was the criticism. And I should have came back with, you're right. I should have called. I apologize. And you should be able to move on. But when it's like, oh, you should have called, you did this on purpose, you've been doing this all the time, it was a plot against me and what I had going on, you have no respect for it, and it turns into this whole giant thing, and you don't even understand where the anger and where the question's coming from. And look, and what's crazy is we have a transparent presidency. We have a president that can answer questions, can do this crazy thing called think on the spot without reading from a card or a teleprompter, or having someone else come out and speak for him, or tell us, we'll circle back to that, or we'll get to you, or as we said, or just, hey, I'm not answering that question because it's a difficult question and I don't have my lie right yet. If we could run SOT 3, this is a great example of this is how you handle an issue.
Director Gabbard testified that any information that would indicate that the U.S. or its allies are going to make an attack should be classified. The Secretary of Defense has said that the information in those messages was not classified. Are you going to ask him to review whether it should have been, should flight times and sequencing
Sure,
be
I'll ask him to do. Sure, I would. It would be. You can view that two ways, frankly. There's a lot of ways to answer that question, but I'd certainly ask him to take a look at it.
So, again, for anybody who's been covering the previous administration, that question would never have been allowed because it was too long. I think it was a paragraph question with a lot of details. And again, President Trump, we shouldn't have to applaud this, but I feel like you kind of was able to answer it at a high level and be very open about, like, yeah, 1,000% I would ask him that. And I'm going to do that. And, we're going to follow through. Here's the thing. Was it a mistake? Yes, 1,000%. Is it to the level of which we're hearing from the left? No. But there still was accountability. We still know the chain of command. We know, Mike Knox, I take full responsibility. Pete Hegseth stepped in and he talked about it. The president addressed it. So, and then you hear him like, we need accountability. What more do you need from that? And apparently, Hit 7, Rep. Jim Himes listen to this.
Everyone here knows that the Russians or the Chinese could have gotten all of that information, and they could have passed it on to the Houthis, who easily could have repositioned weapons and altered their plans to knock down planes or sink ships.
They could have. They could have also diversified their stocks, invested in Tesla, and seen it go up 9 to 8 points and make some money on the weekend. Woulda, coulda, woulda, shouldas. Like worst case scenarios. That's not what's based on. Could bad things have happened? Yes. Did bad things happen? No. Doesn't need to be corrected 100%. But you don't get to go down what-isms and, this could have happened and this could have been. It's a waste of time, and it's a justly unfair criticism. And again, it's not just one. This is probably the most egregious one is roll 8.
This text message is clearly classified information. Secretary Hegseth has disclosed military plans as well as classified information. He needs to resign immediately. He needs to resign immediately, and a full investigation needs to be undertaken.
Well, he just do it. He said he lists all the things he did. None of that's accurate, and needs to resign immediately. If you're this much of a stickler, then the one thing about people who are extremely, like, they are set in the rules and they are set in these things, and if there are any mistakes, you'll be held accountable, is it's across the board. So I was looking for the tape of his outrage when Afghanistan went down and we lost 13 soldiers to the horrible planning and all the mistakes that were made. They were pretty silent about that. And again, it's not about whataboutisms, but to use, I think it was Senator Crow's words, apples to oranges. Apples being, in this case, 13 soldiers losing their life, hundreds of people, thousands of people's lives changed forever, not for the positive. I don't think things are going swimmingly over in Afghanistan for the several hundreds of people that were left behind, not supported anymore. I wonder how women's rights is going on over there. Probably not that well. But that is a situation that should have invoked outrage across the board. Not, it's in my tent, so, I had nothing to see here. And then again, you're seeing the same thing, but this playbook doesn't work. It was proven in this election, the last election, that Americans are no longer falling for it. You can no longer do the smokescreen stuff. Everybody can see. So I keep waiting for them to do the one thing that will help their party, and that's cooperate. Work with the other side who has the best ideas right now. Why is it that every time there's a issue, if it's the 20%, the Democrats are all over it, and the 80% is on the Republican side right now? And it seems to me like you would think at some point you got to tip your hat to the other team. You got to say, hey, you know what? Our way's not working. Their way seems to be working. They're connecting with people. Let's work with them. Because here's the thing. The people that left you to vote might come back. Again, I'm giving advice that they're not going to listen to anyways, because you can't communicate. That's another thing. You can't communicate with them because they're always talking from a position of, if you're not like me, there's something wrong with you. And I don't, there was a word for that. And we seems to be the new face of the party, of the Democratic Party. Whereas Republicans, we're willing to work with anyone. You look at this administration, there are some pretty significant people that were hardcore Democrats that are in President Trump's cabinet. He doesn't care what your affiliation is. He cares about, can you do the job? And so when you see this is what's happening and the American people are getting behind it and they feel good about it, to go back to the old playbook to where this is worse, and trying to fearmonger and create scenarios to try to scare the American people. And I just feel like it's fallen on deaf ears. And at some point, someone in the Democratic Party has to say, you know what, it's a time for me to be the adult in the room. Because two good parties is good for this country. President Trump has a job to do, but he's not a dumb man. He understands how the swamp works, and he knows that his time is short to get things done, because it's only a matter of time before the right starts to fold into some of the lefts, and they start to do all the other, DOJ starts to uncover stuff, and then all of a sudden Republicans, we're going to see it on our side too. But this is the time to get things done, and this is the time for at least one Democrat to really look hard in the mirror and say, I was sworn in to serve my people. Are you really serving your people? Are you serving your people by wasting time perpetuating? We have enough things going on in the world right now that we don't need made-up stories and made-up fantasy tragedies. What's going on in the Middle East, and what's going on in Ukraine, like what's going on in Africa, what's going on in our own streets, what's going on in North Carolina and Tennessee and in California, all these great states that were decimated by natural disasters with little or no help from the government. They're still rebuilding, and we're hearing horror stories all across this country. There are things that we should be talking about. There are things that there should be senators and congressmen outraged about. There should be, why can't we see what's going on in California? How many new homes are starting to go up? Because we're not seeing these wonderful stories. We're being the news cycle is trying to be filled with this fake where you need 14 panelists to talk about what could have happened when instead of talking about what is actually happening in this country right now. And I think that's the difference between the party. I think right now President Trump and the Republicans are working on real issues that you can solve or try to make better. The other side is working in feelings. And right now they're still caught up in their feelings and they're upset. And no matter what the right says, it's wrong. And not just wrong, it is a literal sin against God and the entire world. And hopefully some Democrat will stand up and we'll start getting back to getting things done on both sides.
Have they figured it out that the identity piece of this is more important than the actual substance behind it?
Well, they've been doing it for decades. I mean, we've saw the welfare queens. They've seen the Southern strategy. We've seen it over and over. It's an old playbook, and we're as dumb as we want to be that we allow them to do this with CRT and ESG and DEI and every three-letter word.
And then they demonize people.
Yeah, demonize, and they weaponize grievance. They other people. They talk down to people, past people. They humiliate people. They weaponize difficult issues. But the bottom line is, and I think it goes back to what we began with, is, and I applaud you for this, is we cannot continue to be on the defense reacting to this. We've got to go on the offense. We got to meet people where they are. But I also think this, and this is where, this is part of the conversation I'm trying to have, is you got to respect people you disagree with, and you can't just dismiss people. This
How do you
notion
fight it?
This notion
I think
of
I could kick most of their ass. I do think that if they wanted to. I know I can outrun them, but I don't know if we're going to fall into that place where we want to. Okay, we challenge you to a WWE fight here type of thing.
Man, boy, did that start a party. Joining me today, always an honor and a pleasure anytime I get to speak to Mr. Mayor Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. Kane, but it's funny when two worlds come together, isn't it, sir?
It absolutely is. Thank you for having me on, big man. I really appreciate it.
Always. Well, you're just becoming a little, you're over, brother. Like, every time I turn to TV, I see your smiling face. Like you are definitely in the shine, sir. Well,
when someone throws a fastball, well, actually that was probably a hanging curve on an 0-3 count right down the middle, I'm probably going to take a swing.
Yeah,
that's what that was.
And it was when that statement came out, I think I tweeted like within 6 seconds of seeing that interview. I was like, because I knew the line was going to be long. Who was going to
sure, right?
And then lo and behold, when I had never known you to be a booker before, and it's become, I'm getting asked about it, but you have taken this to the whole other next level to where it's a charity event, and then someone made me an awesome thing where it's the great Hall of Fame tag team, which is of course the Undertaker and yourself, Brothers of Destruction, but for one night only. Brothers of Tesla in a truck. I think that it might, I don't know if it's going to be as big as the Mega Powers, but it might be. But it's the things that people say. And of course, we're having some fun with this, but the responsibility from politicians, it just seems like it's not there anymore. To make these ridiculous statements, especially in light of what's happening with Tesla, with the terrorist attacks on there, you kind of miss decorum. I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, it is tragic, actually. And when you watch that video and you see Gavin Newsom, who is making some great points, actually. Now, the things that he was talking about, I would argue he's wrong. There is such a thing as CRT in our schools. Otherwise, why is it when the state governments try to ban CRT in their schools, we're not teaching that? Well, okay, cool. Well, we could just ban it. Well, you can't do that.
Exactly.
DEI is an issue. And, it's not, I'm all for different people. I get it. But we need to have a meritocracy in this country. You shouldn't be just treated differently because you belong to a group, right?
Yeah, one way or the other.
That's how the country used to be, and it was a big problem. Yep. And now it's almost like it's swinging back the other way. But he was making some really good points. can you imagine? You could see his face and how he had that nervous laugh, and it was like, oh no, this thing just went completely off the rails.
Yeah,
because Tim Walz basically ran his big mouth about something. He wrote a check now that there's no way he can ever cash.
No, literally and figuratively, and what pains me is that it's not just Tim Walz who's the one thing I'm seeing is I feel like, we used to get, and not to give away too much of the magic show that we got to be a part of, but there would be certain rules, where like everyone would be like, hey, don't do this tonight. I'm going to beat his arm up. You beat the leg. Like everyone had a plan or an idea because the goal was to be an individual and be remembered, right? Because if everyone does the same thing, the guy who did the same thing the best is going to be the one who's remembered. So now we have, instead of them going out and speaking their mind and trying to make the best statement for their constituents, now they're getting a memo with like everyone's doing the same move tonight. And it looks like the new memo says cuss as much as you can and insult them beyond the pale of acceptance to where even people who are avid cussers like myself, but I will argue it is a tapestry, that I don't think that's going to work. I don't think it is working. Just for a perfect example, I'm going to listen to Jasmine Crockett here, number 18. Listen to her, this comment she made about Governor Abbott.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes.
And no. That was a trash statement. What bothers me about this is it's across the board. Like I guess that's the new thing. I guess they're trying to be hip and cool. Do you think it's working?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's funny, too, because when I was hearing those beeps, I was like, who's trying to call me? She's cursing.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I think what has happened, you're exactly right about a memo going out. And I think a memo went out among Democrat consultants and strategists that Donald Trump won the election because, and the Republicans are hot because they portray tough and strong.
Right.
Well, they are tough and strong. No matter what you might think of Donald Trump, he is a masculine dude. And they have confused style with substance. They think that just going out and saying those things and acting that way and trying to be tough and trying to be hip by dropping cuss words in formal settings, that makes them they go, right? It's almost like if someone were to put on a silver and black jersey and say, hey, look at me. I'm the Oakland Raiders, I guess the Vegas Raiders now.
Yeah,
but
right.
I'm the Raiders. Yeah. And then you realize that the Raiders had Bo Jackson, right? These Raiders, the Democrats, they've got Bo Derek.
Yeah.
And there's a big problem with that. Trump backs his style up with substance. And that's the issue.
And I think that's what hurt Tim Walz so much was that they tried to paint this picture of him that he wasn't. And instead, you don't have to be a manly man to be a man. You don't have to be, a guy who's an outdoorsman if you're not. There's nothing worse for a man to pretend to be something you're not. Because the American people, especially other men, will see right through it. That hunting thing was one of the saddest displays I'd ever saw because he clearly had never held that gun before. He was completely uncomfortable. And it was but he was trying to portray this image that real men don't portray aggressive guys who live outdoors and an alpha male type that they were going for. You can't BS us. Because we see right through it. That's the whole point. That's why guys don't have to conversate to get to know each other. Within the first few seconds of seeing a guy walk up to you, whether you like him or not. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, he looks, So I feel like, and now he's angry at us for giggling at him.
Sorry, I'm giggling.
Yeah, but it is.
But it's true. It's true, and you're exactly right. These guys are acting as if they were movie stars, if they were TV stars, as if they're pro wrestlers, frankly, as if they're paid actors.
It's a gimmick,
and they're not. First of all, they're not very good at it.
No.
But second of all, yes, you don't portray that. You are that. And people see right through it when you try to be something that you're not, especially in this day and age where social media is ubiquitous and you can't control a narrative anymore. So they've got a real issue in that. They're trying, they've alienated vast swaths of the population. First of all, toxic masculinity. Well, I'm a guy. I consider myself kind of masculine. I didn't like that very much because I'm not an aggressive jerk. That's just, I'm a guy. That's who I am. Then you turn around and you push the transgenderism to the point now where when you look at the numbers and the self-reporting of young people who believe they're transgender has skyrocketed as a percentage compared to what it was years ago. Why is that? Well, because we talk about it all the time and we've made it hip and cool. Then you put men in women's sports, right? I have 2 daughters. My daughters are awesome. They're very strong people. I don't want them playing volleyball or basketball or anything else against boys because physically they just can't match up.
Yeah, I got 3 daughters.
That's just how we are.
Yeah, I got 3 daughters and a son, and one of both. My son does jiu-jitsu, and my daughter wants to do jiu-jitsu. I'm not putting her in with him. Yeah. It's just like you don't do. It's just certain things you don't do. These are norms that are understood. They're not even 20/80 debates. It's like 199. And to get on that one side of it. And again, here's the other thing that and here's the part of being a man. It's not just the macho stuff that they grossly inflate. It's the accountability. It's the best thing about a man is when he knows when he's made a mistake and he's wrong and he apologizes or he goes too far. I'm not above it. You're certainly not above it. Not every decision you've made is the right one. And when it needs correction, you'll be the first one in line to correct yourself because that's how you lead by example. So, with this Crockett situation is with calling Governor Abbott Hot Wheels, you're out of line. You were wrong. And you shouldn't have said it. It was no class. And you've said it before and you said it again. And then instead of apologizing, you try to lie about the comment. It meant something else. What else could it have been? Was he sitting with a large collection of little Hot Wheel cars at a table? Is he an avid collector? No. So you made the comment, and this is what bothers me the most about left-leaning media and mainstream media. They never call them out the right way. It's always has to be a compliment and a protection and a small critique. Like listen to The View here criticize Crockett, and I use that word criticize loosely. Number 20. She
should not have made the comment at all.
You should leave that stuff to the Canadian.
This was beneath her. Yeah. She's just too good for this.
I agree with that because I respect her, but it's just never okay to mock someone's disability.
Yeah, I admire Jasmine Crockett. I do think she's an effective messenger. I think this was a mistake. Yeah. And I think when you make a mistake, you have to own it.
Like the apologies are in the criticism. Like call her out for it. What you did was classless. It was disgusting. Listen, when President Trump made the thing where he was that reporter was going at him and he made a little arm joke, everyone called him out and was like, "Hey, man, that's not cool." Like you go. I say things. I push the limits as a comedian sometimes, and if I go too far, I'll be the first one to say like, "Hey, my bad." But there's a certain level. But this wasn't a joke. This was an attempt to try to be, they got that thug memo and the F word memo, because that's the other one. All of them say the F word now, but it's out of context and never used in the right way. So, and I feel like where they push accountability, but they do not practice it at all.
Yep. 100% agree. Brother, could you imagine, going back to Walls, could you imagine if I had said that?
Oh.
Could you imagine if Donald Trump had said that?
Or I had said
we would be torn apart, intimidating people, threatening people.
Violence, calling for violence.
Yeah, threatening violence, exactly. But when the left does it, when the Democrats do it, okay, cool, they said something they should have, but they're good people, let's move on. And as far as Jasmine Crockett, you know what? As a Republican, I want her to be the spokesman. Absolutely, 100%.
If I was a strategist.
100%, because we will never lose an election as long as she's their spokesman.
I would start booking her.
Yes,
come speak at my events before I went out.
Exactly.
I'd be like, please, I'm running again. She's not even in my district, but this is what we're running against. And it's just, and you make a great point. could you imagine if you and like I've had issues with Facebook, who continues to run fake accounts of me and trying to fleece people out of money and bookings and, romantic relationships with all these people. Apparently fake Tyrus is a hot commodity on Facebook these days, right? But I'm upset and I'm frustrated with it. I've contacted Facebook several times. I'm like, listen, I don't even have an account. So there's no, I don't even have a Facebook account. So these people who are doing this, but you know what? At no time did I call for all my fans and friends and wrestling brothers to go out and vandalize Facebook buildings, or you see anyone on Facebook walk over and snatch their phone out their hand and tell them, that they're a Nazi. And we're seeing with the stuff with Tesla, we're seeing this type of behavior that is inspiring the worst of our society to come forward and do things. And you would like to see some accountability. And it looks like the only way you're going to get that accountability is by voting through the American people.
Yeah, the media is not doing it. I actually sat down with a local media outlet recently to talk about the Walls match, and I said something about the attacks on Tesla, and they said, well, both sides have condemned that. And I'm like, no, they haven't. There's only like one or two congressional Democrats who have said anything, and that's it. You look at the Summer of Love, cities burning, and literally you have some dude standing in front of his background is a city on fire, and the ticker across the bottom is mostly peaceful protest.
Yeah,
fiery,
mostly
peaceful.
That's like being mostly dead.
Exactly. Yes. So it's backfiring now, though. If you have any common sense at all, which Americans do, the vast majority do, you can see right through this. And I think a lot of it is they're just so desperate. The Democrats are so desperate to get back in power. The mainstream media is so desperate to have them back in power that we're literally living, and we did it in COVID too, right?
Yep.
We're literally living in 1984, where they're just inventing narratives. It doesn't matter what the reality on the ground is. It doesn't matter what the facts are. They just say what they want to say. And the problem is when you see the world, when you're out there and you're walking by a Tesla car that's just gotten keyed, or you're on the internet and you're seeing how idiotic could you be to go up and vandalize a Tesla which has cameras on 360 degrees, right? You're getting filmed while you're doing it, right? But when people see that, they're automatically sympathizing with Elon Musk, so it's backfiring on them.
Yeah, I think it all is backfiring. I think and we have to leave it there. But I will say, I think the common understanding of this is common sense, ladies and gentlemen, common sense. And don't wear bright pants if you're going to do bad things to a Tesla. It's easier to spot you with a camera. But anyways, man, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time. And then I'm still training. I'll be ready when I get the call.
Sounds good. If he reaches out to me, you'll be the first to know.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, man.
All right. This is Tyrus filling in for Brian Kilmeade. We'll be back after these messages.
It's Brian Kilmeade.
Psych. It's Tyrus. Approachable. Who could be more approachable than me? Well, I guess I have my own gravitational pull, so you have to approach me whether you like it or not. That's just my magnetic charisma, as I like to say. And speaking of charisma, joining me today is the charismatic Fox News radio political analyst. Now, that's a title. I need to get analyst. I feel like that means you're above extra. I'm just a Fox contributor, but I like to be a contributor analyst. But I will delay the suspense no more. Josh Kraushaar is in the house. What's up, good sir?
Great to be with you. Happy opening day. That's enough to get.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, well, I got to be honest. I am mad at my Red Sox. I think we have a lot of great young talent, and we made some moves in the offseason, but letting our closer go, I'm furious. Absolutely.
Well, that could be a hell of a division. I mean, the Yankees are injured, but they still have.
But the Yankees schmankies. There's this big monster bird called the Orioles, who are young and not going anywhere.
They are, and I've jumped on the O's bandwagon as a DC Baltimore guy, but they lost their best pitcher from last year, so I'm expecting.
Yeah, but their farm system, and they got guys who don't have driver's license yet. They're listen, and the Rays are always tough. They're always going to the Red Sox, again, like I said, I think I'm worried about the sophomore jinx because we had 3 rookies last year and one untraditional one, but we definitely made strides in the bullpen. and some starters. But, man, I'm mad we let our guy go to the Angels. Man, I was just upset. And I'm just I know Chapman, I don't know, man.
Well, the hope springs eternal on opening day. It's always that you don't have any losses. The rest of the season may not be quite as favorable, but it's going to be a great year, great division.
I think it's going to be great for I think baseball's going to be great for the country. You know what was nice when I was coming in the building this morning is there was a bunch of people standing by the refrigerator, and guess what they were talking about? Opening day. Everyone was talking about their teams. You had a Pittsburgh Pirate fan that had temerity discuss about their optimistic for this season, but it's good to see that we're not talking about, did you hear what's happened on the news last night? Did you hear the latest speech? It's nice to get back to stuff that just builds camaraderie and is fun to talk about, and no one walks away offended.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's good. The sports at its best unite the country. You have rivalries. You got a lot of. Talk trash to all my Yankees and Philly as a Nats fan. And the Phillies are probably biggest rival. To the Soto going to the Mets is not a great thing for us Nats fans to have to deal with. But no, I mean it's sports bring people together, and we could use a lot of that in Washington. Yeah,
and it's pretty to come together because rivalry isn't even the word for some of the stuff. Let me just get this party started. Roll number 9. This is Donald Trump in the White House talking about the courts pretending that they're the president.
We're getting them out in record numbers, and we're having a lot of problems with the courts because the courts want to pretend they're president, and they're not president. They didn't get 80 million votes, and they're not. They can't do that to this country. That's not their job, but we're getting them out in record numbers.
Again, I'm the first one for the debate. I'm the first one to try to see things from different angles. I just don't see the angle of being in opposition for getting hardened criminals who are not supposed to be in this country to begin with. And on top of that, they entered the country illegally, and they're practicing and living out their criminal dreams in this country. I don't see the argument.
Well, this is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. This is the appeals court yesterday, including one George W. Bush appointed judge, agreed with was one of the two judges on a three-court majority to rule against the White House. Look, the big question is about due process. And politically, I think Trump has the wind at his back. People elected him because he promised to be tougher on illegal immigration, to seal up the border, to make that a major issue in a way that you didn't see President Biden prioritizing, at least until the very end of his administration. The thing that I think could slip up the Trump administration, and this is what the courts are dealing with now, is that some of the people from Venezuela that apparently were deported to El Salvador, that notorious prison, apparently didn't have any criminal records and were actually here legally on humanitarian visas, for humanitarian reasons, and they were legally here in the country. So if it turns out that the claims that these were members of a gang were not true, and then they misrepresented the case in front of the courts, that's what could get them in trouble at the highest court in the land down the road. So, look, I think politically you're right. Like, this is one of the big issues why Trump got elected, and I think he has a lot of running room to deal with illegal immigration and people here in this country illegally. But if you make mistakes, if you don't, you're not honest or you misrepresent things at the court, that could get you in trouble. And that's why, you got these checks and balances going on. And the fight that we're hearing from the president, we're hearing from the courts, are really much in full swing right now.
Well, and here's the thing. And since you brought up Kristi Noem, let's roll number 10 and have you respond to this, which I think falls in line with basically what you've been talking about.
Do you guys have plans to send more TDA members to the prison we visited today? And how long are they going to stay there for?
I think that is one of the discussions we'll continue to have. The president today indicated that he would be open to working with us in the future on still continuing to receive TDA members and MS-13 members. And so we are grateful for that.
Again, and I understand what you're saying, like if there was a mistake made, but that's the process, because I'm sure once they are apprehended and they're brought back, and they're in that situation, then they can get lawyers and stuff like that, or they can find out, or they can prove themselves. But I feel like that's such a small percentage. It's a little hard to tell me if you got an MS-13 on your forehead that you're probably not MSN-13. And they, like I said, they're they've been surveillance. There's been investigation. These guys are on the wanted list. So I think they are taking the steps. And if there is a mistake, which happens in all forms of law, there are things, I was wrongly once pulled over for speeding, but those mistakes can be corrected. I think the bigger problem is allowing the whole as a mass to continue going on. I mean, we basically had millions and millions of undocumented people that we have no idea who they are, where they're from, and in a lot of cases we're seeing these are some pretty bad individuals.
Well, look, that's the great thing about having a judicial branch, having courts, because you have to back your claims up in a court. You can't just spin. You have to actually say these actually were members of that criminal gang that is notorious and should be, the administration should be aggressively trying to remove people. I mean, they just had a big success, by the way, today. They claim that they got a very
top guy from MS-13,
MS-13 in Northern Virginia. So I mean, those are good things. As long as it's true and as long as that's the case, these are going to be big political wins for the White House. Where they're going to get in trouble, though, is again, the great thing about the courts is that you have to back your arguments up with evidence, right. And that's the challenge they've been facing so far. They've been claiming that most of these people are members of this notorious gang, but we're now learning in court and we're learning through other reporting that these actually people had tattoos, but they didn't have any gang tattoos. They actually misidentified some of this stuff. So right. That's what you don't want when you're dealing with something so serious as deporting people to a notorious El Salvadorian prison where you saw the images with Kristi Noem. You don't want to go there if you're wrongly accused.
No, and that has merit. But I also think that regardless of whether you're a criminal or not, if you entered the country illegally, you should be deported across the board. So, and that's where you let the process play itself out, and corrections will be made. But I feel like it's such a double standard. Like if an American commits a small crime, they're like, oh, he needs to pay for his crime, forgets to pay a ticket on a suspended driver's license and has a warrant, and they're like, well, it was just a suspended driver's license. So there's like this, but where entering the country illegally, and they're like, well, there's worse things. But I think if you're following the law, you need to follow the law, period. So when I hear, again, you don't want to be mistaken and end up in Guantanamo Bay. I 1,000% believe that. But I also think that you can also figure it out from over there, too. It doesn't have to be just letting, people roam. If you're under suspicion and you've already have this probable cause because you've already entered the country illegal, I still think you should be deported. And I think you should make things better for the people who are doing it the right way.
Yeah, no, and I think that was one of the criticisms of the Biden administration, which was they did not prioritize deporting people who were here in the country illegally, and that's what the American public wanted. I think the one thing though about some of the people who may have been sent to El Salvador at this prison is that they actually, many of them allegedly were here legally as part of receiving humanitarian status. They were escaping communism, a really evil regime in Venezuela. They actually, some of them, not all of them, but some of them we now know have reportedly at least been here legally for at least under these protection laws in our country. So that's another thing that the courts have to sort out. But if they were here legally, at least under a humanitarian status, that's a difference than being here
right.
illegally and just crossing the border and breaking the laws.
But I think in being proactive in enforcing the laws that should have been enforced for the last 4 years, you'll be able to make that determination and figure out who's who and what's what in the process of it. And unfortunately, there's always going to be an exception to the rule. But I don't think the exception should be considered the norm. I guess that's my argument. Nothing was done for 4 years, so maybe it's a little tighter in the beginning while you figure out what's what and who's who and how many numbers we're dealing with and what the situation is, because you can't have situations like what happened in Colorado, what happened in New York City, where you basically had Venezuelan gangs just setting up shop. And you don't want gangs anyways, American gangs or foreign gangs, but if you can eliminate the ones that shouldn't even be here, then I think you should.
Well, and the Supreme Court is going to get a big bite out of this apple. John Roberts,
I'm very interested to see how this plays out.
Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett, those are going to be swing votes on a case like this. So there's going to be a big showdown at the Supreme Court, and I imagine we're all going to be following that closely when it gets to that point.
Well, let me ask you real quick before I have to let you go, because I'm always fascinated to hear your thought process. Rule number 12 for me. This is Boston's mayor.
No one tells Boston how to take care of our own. Not kings and not presidents who think they are kings. All over the country, people are feeling the weight of a federal administration that's attacking our sources of strength. The same people and purpose that make Boston great.
Yeah, no one tells Boston how to take care of our own. That's the laws tell you how to take care of your own. I just, that type of rhetoric, again, we're not going to cooperate with the federal government, with the president. I just feel like it's irresponsible. You can have a difference of opinion, but breaking the law or just flat out saying we refuse to cooperate, how does that help anyone?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That's Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, very progressive mayor. She's, interestingly enough, in the middle of a campaign against another Democrat who happens to be the son of the New England Patriots owner, Bob Kraft.
Yeah. Well,
so as a politics guy, I'm following that race pretty closely.
I'm in it now.
Definitely. Yeah. And I'm actually a Pats fan.
Yeah, so am I. So because you're not getting any wins anytime soon. So this will be interesting.
But he's running as a Democrat who's a more moderate Democrat, especially on some of the issues like she's definitely on law and order issues, on criminal justice issues. She's definitely very much to the left and has taken a lot of heat for that.
She's a strange bird, because when I say that, like, she threw a Christmas party where she said no white people were allowed and her husband's white.
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird. Like, does anyone not think it through? I mean,
well, did you see? I'm sure you saw the NPR hearing on Capitol Hill yesterday, where the craziness, the wokeness of like that moment in time in 2020, that was coming back to bite these people who were just drinking the Kool-Aid, and all of a sudden the reality has kind of reestablished itself. And you're seeing that in cities too. A lot of left-wing mayors, Chicago, I know Brandon Johnson has like a 6% job approval rating. The left-wing progressive mayor in San Francisco got ousted. You're seeing this in deep blue cities across the country. Andrew Cuomo trying to make a comeback in New York. This is a real test for whether they're moderates of the Democratic Party, and Josh Kraft is one of them. But there are a lot of other folks that are saying enough is enough. We need more moderation.
Do you think this is a moment for common sense, moderate Democrats to regain a hold on the party, or is it just progressive in the mainstream media just too in love with the progressives because their new memo, the F-word memo that's out, with them all cussing, all of a sudden miraculously they all start cussing, and it's always out of context and it's not smooth. Like, cussing is an art form. As a guy who cusses,
it's so inauthentic too. It's kind of embarrassing, right? Look, this is a moment for the party. They need to figure out who they are. They're in a disarray. They don't know whether they want to go left. They want to go to the center. There are smoke signals though in these cities where they've been badly governed, crimes out of control. You've got a lot of disorder, and moderates are trying to make a comeback. And if someone like an Andrew Cuomo wins in New York City, if Brandon Johnson gets ousted in Chicago, and then you get more moderate leaders, that might be the first step they need to take to show that they can actually govern and lead effectively.
Yeah, like, how can you be less popular than Lori Lightfoot? I mean, that's hard to do.
Yeah, you never. As a pessimist, you never expect that you can always hit further rock bottom. That's what Chicago voters have quickly learned. Well,
and again, because you need two strong parties to have a checks and balances, but you would like to have a connection of common sense, and at least on top of what I think Bill Maher coined the phrase 80-20 issues. Isn't that an opportunity for moderate Democrats to be like, listen, the adults are back in the room, and because right now I feel like the Democratic Party is a party of activists, and not necessarily part of the politicians or the moderates. They've kind of just been submerged. I guess it would be like if the Tea Party completely took over the Republican Party.
Yeah, no, and you're seeing this battle take place between AOC and Chuck Schumer, and I'm actually sort of surprised that it seems like Democrats are going after Schumer now as a sign that they're willing to fight and that they're going to the left. And Schumer's no moderate. He's pretty liberal himself. So I think they're going to be these little battles and as part of the larger war within the Democratic Party. If they go further left as a response to President Trump, they're going to marginalize themselves and only hurt their political prospects. I think it is. I think in the cities, though, they have hit rock bottom in certain cities so much so
literally
that it's actually created the opportunity for the middle to find itself and fight back. You haven't seen that in Congress. Democrats still haven't gotten that memo.
No, and you're seeing it in California. So, but unfortunately, we got to leave it there. I ran out of time because, like I said, I could listen to this politic and talk all day long, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, this is Tyrus filling in for Brian Kilmeade on the Brian Kilmeade Show. We'll be back after this.
He's so busy, he'll make your head spin. It's Brian Kilmeade.
Yep, he's apparently so busy that I had to fill in for him today, but that's right. You got Tyrus on the Brian Kilmeade Show. Excited as always anytime I get the call. I'm like in the bullpen just throwing around waiting for Fox to name me. And you know what? It's Thursday, so it's opening day, I believe it. Excited about that. I'm a diehard Red Sox fan, and I'm very optimistic about this year. And I'm also very optimistic about the new health craze that seems to be going around this country. Everyone's trying to get fit and trim off a few pounds from back in the day or during the pandemic or the last 4 years of being glued to the TV set because you're trying to make sense of what has just been said to you. So it's nice that we're all starting to get loose and doing some exercising, and I'm all for it. I'm all about that life. I've been posting it on my social media. Getting back into shape for me, it was about being more active with my kids, being able to, life after wrestling does not mean that I just gain a bunch of weight and get old. I still got a lot of gas left in the tank. And so I'm just doing all kinds of new workout stuff, and I'm having fun with that. I'm doing some boxing stuff.
Tyrus.
Yo.
Sorry
yes.
to jump in. You got a call coming in.
Okay.
Ingrid.
Oh.
Hello?
Hey, honey. I'm working.
Hi.
How are you? I'm working.
Well, I know, but I thought that you have a show in Andover, Massachusetts tonight. 1,200 people are waiting to see you, so I thought we agreed that you were not going to work this morning.
No. I agreed not to work tonight, but Brian asked me to fill in for him, so I'm on the radio.
Oh,
again.
so when Brian asks you to do something, that's what you do. But when your wife asks you to do something, you kind of push it to the side, as if 1,200 people aren't waiting to see you, and it's a 4-hour drive from where you are now.
I'll be there in plenty of time. 1,000% I'll be on time. But again, anytime I get a chance to do the radio show, I'm going to do it. And it's a great, it's a great also opportunity for me to sell the show.
Wait. Let's use this opportunity now that you're playing on the radio this morning.
I'm not playing.
Why don't we tell them, besides your sold-out show in Andover, Massachusetts tonight, that you actually have a show in Grand Rapids, Michigan on April 3rd, East Lansing, Michigan on April 4th. You're back in Middletown, Ohio, where J.D. Vance is from, on May 17th. You have all these cities coming up that we could be telling people about, since you chose to go play on the radio this morning for Brian instead of making me comfortable and getting your butt over to Andover, Massachusetts.
Okay, again, I'm not playing. I don't play it. I do. This is my job. This is work. I'm in the bullpen. It's opening day, and Brian said, "Hey, can you come in and throw three innings for me on the radio show?" And I just assumed that my wife would be like, "Yeah, you go get it. You get that dollar. Do that
Yeah,
work."
I'm super supportive about it, as long as you also talk about the stuff that I do. So, like, you're going to be in Omaha on July 11th, Concordia, Kansas, July 13th. I mean, I could keep going because you have
yes,
all
there's no
these
doubt about
cities
it.
on your link tree.
1,000%. Where is it again? It's on my link tree, right?
Yes, it's on your link tree. That's going to be the safest, most effective, and affordable way to get your tickets.
Awesome. Listen, I was talking about health stuff before you were called.
You? We're talking about it? To who?
To America. And
oh, okay.
Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I've slimmed down a lot lately.
Yes, you look great.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Having said that, I had a guest to talk about health and fitness and nutrition and, especially what's going on with RFK Jr., but they are no longer here. Because you called during the time that I was supposed to speak to them. So, it
was meant to be then.
Or that's one way to put it. Since you're here and I need a guest, to talk about health. It just so happens that I believe you are a master trainer and nutrition expert, well, dictator, because, you know,
well, that's the reason you have not previously asked for my opinion when other people are in earshot, because I'm a little blunt about it. Like, as a mom of 3 and someone who lost 150 pounds naturally the hard way, diet and exercise, I am a little harsh about it. Like, we have a type 1 diabetic son who is only 5% of diabetics are type 1. He did not do it to himself. There's absolutely no way he can cure himself. He's dependent on insulin for the rest of his life. And to see so many Americans being type 2 and pre-diabetic, even children now, it's really frustrating as a mom, because I'm like, our kid cannot fix himself. It's autoimmune. His pancreas is dead. He can't cure himself. And all these people are walking around and they can actually fix their problem. And it's really through movement and how they eat. And it's frustrating. And so, yeah, I'm like really blunt about things like that. And you say I don't sugarcoat things well enough. No pun intended.
That's the term that I would use. Yes, you do not sugarcoat anything, not even when sugar is probably needed.
The main topic.
Yeah, like in a cookie or ice cream and stuff. Like I said, that was a difficult thing for me to give up because of comfort food. Do you think with RFK Jr. Taking over and his commitment to food being healthy again, and or at least giving people the information, do you think it's something that if people have the healthy option with the actual information, they'll take it in? Or do you think we're just too far gone with the sugar addiction?
That make us addicted and never satisfied. So it is an addiction. It is a problem. It's going to be really, really difficult. But you start with the children. And so one of the things I'm really happy they're doing, and I've said all along, is that the food stamps and the EBT, I am not someone who's opposed to that. Like, I do believe at parts of all of our lives, whether we're sick or we're struggling with a job or whatever, we should all be allowed at some point to use that benefit when needed for a short term. The problem is, as someone who did use it for about a year when my children were very, very little before I met you, is that it's a lot of money they give you, and you can buy whatever the heck you want. I was shocked. You can buy any junk food you want, but you know, if you try to buy a protein bar, you can't.
See, and that's blunt truth with my wife, Ingrid. Thank you so much, honey. I'm going to go back to work now.